So you know that person who, without even trying, seems to become the center of attention everywhere they go? Everyone's drawn to them, laughing at their stories, laughing at their jokes, hanging on to every word they say. They just have a magnetic pull to their personality that you can't quite put your finger on. But that's charisma, and it's defined as compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others. Or in simple terms, it's the special spark or vibe that draws people toward you. But here's the thing. It's not some magical talent that only a few are born with. It's actually a combination of skills that you can learn and practice. So in this video, I'm going to go over some of the basics of charisma and how you can become more charismatic. Number 1, presence and awareness. Russell Brand, who is very charismatic himself, said that charisma is about being present in the moment without self-reflection, and I agree. In order to be charismatic, you have to first get your mind right. Anxiety, self-consciousness, and fear cloud your charisma by trapping you in your own mind. It's important to keep in mind that people feel what you are thinking about yourself. So you have to reframe your internal narrative first if it's out of alignment with what you were trying to project. Now, the way to do this is by challenging the story that you tell yourself. When I'm anxious about meeting new people, I just remind myself to just be myself, treat the other people well, and just let things flow from there. There's a lot of things I can't control, so I try to let those things go. Telling your mind the logical facts of the situation and letting go of what you can't control can set your mind at ease. Also keep in mind that the most charismatic people still have their off moments. Everyone has awkward silences sometimes or a goofy comment that they regret later on. But in the grand scheme of things, those things don't matter. We always tend to magnify our own slip-ups more than others do. It's also helpful to create a routine to boost your mindset by utilizing things like music, imagery, and facial expressions. Personally, for me, music can completely transform my mood. And I have specific songs I'll listen to before going out with friends or on a date because they put me in an upbeat and confident mood that is ready to socialize. With imagery, I once saw a technique online where someone described closing your eyes and imagining laying on a white sandy beach with the warm sun beaming down on your skin. Just the image alone and the feeling of that warmth from the sun in your mind can boost your mood and focus. Changing your facial expression can be equally powerful. We often think that we smile because we're happy, which is true of course, but you can make yourself happier by forcing yourself to smile first and assuming a posture that is more upright and powerful. Remember that your body speaks as loudly as your words. Maintain an open posture, gesture naturally to emphasize points, and keep consistent eye contact. Lastly, realize that charisma is already present inside of you. It's just about letting go and opening up freely to display it without fear. Now, while I just highlighted the importance of logic when it comes to calming your own mind, emotion is what reigns supreme when communicating with others. Every human, no matter how logical, is driven by emotions. From tears during tragic or sad moments to smiling during the best time of our lives, emotions shape our experiences as human beings. Now, because of this, engaging people's emotions is at the core of charisma. If you can engage people's emotions, you instantly become more charismatic. A great way to engage people emotionally is through the way you tell stories and share experiences. A good quote I heard before is to tell a story, not the news. And the next time you share an experience, remember this. It's more about how you present the story that matters rather than the actual story itself. You want to vary your vocal range when you speak and use more animated gestures and descriptive language. Those elements combined help give a story more life. And in terms of vocal range, alternating between different pitches and emphasizing specific words can add depth and emotion to your story. The rhythm and pace of your speech are also important because they set the tone and mood. Use pauses, laughter, and eye contact to engage the listener. And remember that a flat, dry delivery makes it challenging for listeners to stay engaged, and captivating the person you're talking to is more about how you're saying something rather than what you're saying. For example, there are 2 different ways you could tell someone about how you went to a music festival over the summer. An example of a boring way would be something like this. Over the summer, I went to a music festival that took place in a forest. Some of the biggest artists performed and there were a ton of people. It was a cool experience. Or you could put more emphasis into painting a picture and expressing the feelings you felt while you were there. So an example of that would be something like this. So over the summer, I went to this music festival that a friend had been recommending to me for a while. And let me tell you, this place was mind-blowing. The festival took place in this forest that just seemed to go on for miles and miles. It was huge and the scenery was something out of a movie. The festival had a crowd to match too. There were over 100,000 people there from over 300 countries, and all the best artists were headlining. It was this perfect combination of beautiful landscape, amazing people, and music, and it was easily the best festival that I've been to. Now, one of the benefits of opening up my story and being more descriptive is that it gives you a better picture in your mind of what I had experienced, but it also gives the other person more options to continue expanding the conversation. For example, you could ask me what country had the coolest people there, if I had any pictures of the scenery that I described as being out of a movie, or what other festivals I've been to that made me think that this was the best one. Now, I'm not sure if there's an actual academic term for this, but I like to call this concept expansion. The idea of expansion is to present questions and answers in a way that gives the other person multiple options to expand on, but also has an interesting effect of perceiving you as being more relatable and charismatic. For example, let's say I'm talking to a girl on a date and she mentions that she's into fitness. An example of a boring reply would be for me to say something like, "Oh, so what do you do to stay fit?" A more interesting way of asking the question would be to say something like, "Oh, you're into fitness. So do you lift weights or do yoga or..." Wait, don't tell me you're one of those cardio bunnies that just runs on the treadmill for hours and hours. You're more likely to get a dry 1 or 2 word answer with the first question, whereas with the second, you're more likely to make her laugh because she can relate to the cardio bunnies in the gym if she's a gym girl, plus that push-pull aspect of kind of grilling her for it and the assumption that you're making. Plus the question just allows for a more varied delivery with your facial expressions, your tone, your rhythm, etc. There's just more potential for an emotional response overall. Another example of this with a reply is if someone asks what you do for work. A boring answer would just be, "Oh, I'm a personal trainer." A more interesting answer that expands would be something like, "So I was actually in school originally to become a physical therapist, but I fell in love with the gym along the way, so now I'm a personal trainer that mainly works with athletes," which is actually a lot of fun because I used to play baseball years ago. By the way, do you work out or have you played any sports in the past? The expansive answer gives the other person multiple things to potentially talk about, and it allows you more opportunities to express emotion and to make the conversation more colorful overall. They have the 2 questions that you presented to them, plus your background with school, your job, and working with athletes. That gives them more insight into who you are as a person, plus the avenues they can explore with you in conversation. Now, I could talk more about this or expand on it. But this is really the backbone of how you become more interesting in conversation and never run out of things to say. It's not about talking more and just adding a bunch of words in there, but talking smarter. Adding a bit of flair and extra information gives others more to bounce back with. Mix in some of the earlier tips and you're making the conversation much more engaging overall, which is increasing your charisma. Now, you may have noticed in the last example, I answered the person's question, but my expression showed genuine interest when replying with 2 questions of my own. The expression of genuine interest is one of the elements that creates a vibe of caring about the other person and having a warm demeanor overall. This genuine interest also translates to giving sincere compliments, and a heartfelt compliment at the right time can create an instant connection. Think back to a time when someone really listened to you and when their attention felt like a warm spotlight on you. That's the magic of warmth, and warmth goes beyond just a smile. It's about being fully present with the person. Now, here's another way to think about this. Think of someone who's the opposite of charismatic, someone who's constantly distracted, distant, or disinterested. Now, if you flip those traits around, you've got part of the blueprint for being charismatic: engaged, focused, and interested. Now, I've noticed in my own life that the most charismatic people I know share a few key traits. They're genuinely interested in what other people say, they're empathetic, and when they talk to you, it feels like you're the only person in the room. So the way to get there is by first being in the moment. When you're talking with someone, be all in. Ignore your phone, tune out background noise, and really listen while holding eye contact. Empathy is also key. Understand where the other person is coming from. If they share something personal, show them that you get it. Active listening involves more than just hearing them. Nod in agreement, give verbal affirmations like "I see," "I understand," and occasionally reflecting back what someone has said ensures the person feels truly heard and valued. Share stories that relate to their experience, and you will create a dynamic where they feel heard and the conversation deepens, which increases your perceived charisma in their eyes. Now, I saved this tip for last because displaying warmth allows you to utilize the other elements I've talked about so far with your mindset, your presentation, your storytelling, and expansion. When you combine all of them together with a genuine interest in the person, they synergize together to create a charismatic aura. Keep in mind that it's also important to practice these things consistently. Social skills are one of those things that become rusty when you don't use them. I know for myself, if I'm in the house a lot, the first time I go back out, it takes me a while to warm up again as someone who's naturally more introverted. So practice is key for somebody like me and likely for somebody like you if you have an introverted personality. It's important to place yourself in situations to practice your charisma and social skills over and over with a variety of people until these things feel second nature. Also, another thing that's key is to pay attention to how you handle disagreements or criticisms. Remember that charisma isn't just about how you speak, but also how you listen and respond. A graceful response in situations where people are challenging you, whether it's playful or not, can really elevate your charismatic presence. I also suggest paying attention to charismatic people around you and celebrities while actively asking yourself what makes them seem so charismatic to you. What are the traits and details of their behavior that grabs your attention so well? What is it about someone who holds your attention when telling a story? Why are they so interesting? Ask yourself these questions and then break them down systematically so you can emulate some of the traits that capture your attention. Now, another important trait that can enhance your charisma is confidence. So make sure you watch this video next, where I go over some of the mindset shifts you can make to instantly boost your confidence, and I will see you in the next one.